To discuss this issue further, I'm now joined by Markus Slevogt, who is the president of the German-Turkish Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Hakan Akbas, who is a senior advisor at the Albright Stonebridge Group. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on Straight Talk.
Thanks for having us.
Hakan, I'm going to start with you. Do you think the erratic behaviour we've seen from the United States with regards to sanctions, trade, is that pushing Turkey and the EU closer together?
Mr. Donald Trump becoming the US president obviously created a new world order. And from G20 summits to NATO summits, and as we've seen the other day at the United Nations Grand Assembly meetings, the speech that Mr. Trump gave, obviously the world is facing the real politic of Mr. Trump, which inevitably is creating anti-coalitions vis-a-vis, for example, trade and economy-wise. Obviously, Turkey is getting closer to EU. And also we've seen this on the military and security front, especially in Syria.
Do you think Turkey and the EU would have gotten closer if it wasn't for Donald Trump?
Well, we know that Turkey's accession journey has been put on full stop. And last year, parties got together to basically discuss this migrant deal in return for Turkey getting the long overdue visa-free travel rights. And it's been a difficult sort of relationship, I would say, and it's unfortunate that the journey has come to a full stop. But as I said, the real politic of Mr. Trump, I think, is forcing both Turkey and EU to basically finally walk the talk. And I think that from Turkey's perspective, what Turkey has achieved in Idlib, in Syria, will basically, and again, Turkey worked with both EU and US in a way, so that Mr. Putin would put a stop onto its offensive, which was a big achievement for Turkish diplomacy.
It is. I'm going to ask you about Idlib in a couple of minutes' time, but before we drill down onto the situation in Syria, I just want to put a question to you first of all, Markus, with regards to the relationship between Turkey and Germany. We saw that deteriorate after the 2016 failed coup attempt. Things weren't good last year, but they've turned it around, and we've seen Germany come out in defence of Turkey during the recent slide in the Turkish currency, the lira. Why? Why do you think Germany was so vocal in its support of Turkey?
There are several reasons for this. First of all, the overall relationship between Germany and Turkey is a very, very solid one, dating back in particular on the diplomatic and economic front for more than 200 years. Germany is Turkey's largest trade partner, with trade just in 2017 of 30.8 billion euros. And this is a very intense relationship that is also very much affecting both sides in terms of industrial production. Turkey is an important part of the supply chain for German companies. And Germany is very interested also from its own point of view and due to its own role in the refugee relationship and issues, that Turkey is playing its role in this region, that Turkey is a stable factor, a stabilizing anchor in this region, and therefore the German interest in this area, in this part of the world, is very much related to Turkey.
We've seen ambassadors, the Turkish and ambassadors for the Netherlands reinstated, which has been an important political move, but do you also see it as an important sort of symbolic move for other EU countries to change their attitude of Turkey and to really get these close ties with the EU as a whole?
Yes, I believe we reached now, after a very difficult year of 2017, we reached a level where we have stopped talking about each other, and now we are talking with each other and ensuring that the communication channels are reopened again, and that also, of course, and Hakan already mentioned that very clearly, that the EU accession topic was always a difficult one, but that now there is again at least a chance to start the communication on that subject again.
Mm-hmm. Hakan, I'm going to now revisit what you were talking about with regards to the war in Syria and the deal we saw struck with regards to Idlib. It seems as if the European Union is very comfortable letting Turkey take the lead on this issue, and they are playing a very important diplomatic role in trying to strike a peace deal in Syria. How important do you think that has been to change the EU's opinion of Turkey, and how is the EU viewing Turkey now with regards to these diplomatic negotiations?
I think that very issue in Idlib definitely was a wake-up call for EU in terms of realizing how critical it is to have a financially and security-wise stable Turkey in their southern border. And also, I think EU also realized that if we were to have another crisis in Idlib, they could see more than 3 million, again, refugees knocking on their door, as we've seen. And it's been a major tragedy, people just drowning in the Aegean Sea, in the Mediterranean Sea. And I think that it's everybody's job to really prevent another major human, basically, catastrophe. And, but having said that, obviously, this is a socially and politically also challenge, a major challenge and priority for all the European basically governments. And so Turkey, I think, will be an anchor from that perspective. On top of it, obviously, Turkey has long been sort of trying to negotiate an expanded customs union, which is very important. But the other pieces, before we get to that, as Russia becoming more aggressive on not only on the southern border, but also on the eastern border, I think EU is also realizing how important as an asset to have NATO's second largest and strongest military basically members and being in good terms with Turkey. So I think Syria will continue to be a major problem for everybody, and I think that EU will realize that they need to be also in very good terms with Turkey.
Yes, and Turkey is playing such an important role on everyone's behalf there. Before we wrap it up, Markus, I just want to ask one final question to you. If the EU and Turkey are going to get even closer, what needs to change? What do you think are the biggest hurdles, the biggest roadblocks to even closer relationships?
We have all that outlined in the accession and progress reports that the European Union is publishing on a regular basis. Definitely one topic when I'm talking about industry and trade is the customs union. The customs union is something that has put on hold and has, by its current nature, even deficiencies in comparison to the initial intention of the customs union of 1995. Because both sides, the European side and the Turkish side, have put in so-called non-tariff barriers for goods coming from both sides. And it is necessary, even before we start talking about a potential 2.0 version of the customs union, to eliminate these tariffs, these non-tariff barriers, and to make sure that the trade is flowing according to the initial intentions. Then we can talk about further progress in the customs union, and that is what the industry and business primarily is concerned about. And then there are definitely many other political matters.
What are the political matters, apart from the customs union?
Including solving this Cyprus issue, and also ensuring, but that I consider even a non-tariff barrier, is visa-free travel from a Turkish point of view. These are things that have to be removed and I believe require an immediate solution.
It's going to be interesting weeks and months ahead as we see Turkey and the European Union getting even closer. It's going to be one to watch. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here on Straight Talk.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.